Welcome to Beyond the Exhibition, GWOT Veterans Leading the Way, Part 2. This is a second part in our series. We've been doing several of these where we're exploring stories of GWOT veterans and about how they continue to positively impact their communities and our country. Today, we are joined by two incredible humans, Tonya Oxendine and JC Glick. They're going to tell a little bit about their story, their service, their transition, and their experiences of finding their tribe and especially their purpose once taking off the uniform. JC has a lengthy career of over 20 years serving the Army, becoming a lieutenant colonel. Most of his time was serving in the 75th Ranger Regiment. And Tonya Oxendine, incredible human being who served for over 30 years, becoming the highest enlisted rank you can get with Command Sergeant Major. And she's got quite an incredible story. So we are very privileged to have both of them here with us. And I'm also joined by my co-host and also co-author of the 20-Year War, Tom Amenta. So thank you all for joining us.
Tonya, I really just want to open the floor up to start off and let you both explain a little bit about who you are, your journey through the military, your journey through your post-military, and then what you're doing now. So the floor is yours.
So I'll just start off by, just telling you a little bit about myself and, like you said, what I'm doing now. So I grew up, very, by any accounts, poor. My mother was a single parent of me and my brother. We were on food stamps and welfare. Just didn't have, some of the things that I have now and I'm privileged to have. It was just a lot of stuff going on around us and around other people in our neighborhood and how we lived. There was always sounds of, and evidence of physical and verbal abuse. And that was to include me and my mother, my brother. And I knew I needed to escape that place, that where we lived and how we were living. So I know I didn't want my life to continue to consist of, the welfare, the food stamps, the fussing, the cussing, the arguing, the fighting, the blackened eyes, and then, things that happen to me as a little girl that no one should endure, especially little girls, right? So, I left that terrible situation. I joined the Army. A little disappointed to find some of the same things that I was running from, the sexual abuse, the harassment. And I was afraid to speak out as a child because as a child, you just kind of had to stay in a child's place, and that we didn't talk like we talk now, And then in the military, I was afraid to speak out because I was in fear of losing my job, and I couldn't do that because it was better where I was at in the military versus going back to what I left. But I will say, despite all of that, I had an amazing career. I made it to the top of the level of promotion that I could. I did some amazing things. I had some amazing teams, my tribe, because it's not the military, the Army, or whatever branch. It's sometimes just bad people. And now currently I'm with a organization I'm sure you gentlemen are familiar with, Wounded Warrior Project, where I get to go out and where I was once not speaking up for myself. I spoke up for others, but not necessarily myself. Now I get to speak up and share my powerful voice and share my story to hopefully help other people, empower other people, and inspire other people. And if they are scared to speak up and still can't, then I'll carry them on my shoulders until they're strong enough to stand up on their own 2 feet. So that's what I do for Wounded Warrior Project. Go around the country speaking on behalf of them as a spokesperson and sharing my story and, helping out other wounded warriors and other veterans, letting them know and informing the community about what we provide for our wounded warriors. We have over 20 free programs and such. So I'm living, my life is freaking, it looks like where JC's at right now. just shining bright and just absolutely the beautiful blue skies. It's amazing, despite, the little bumps and shit, but they ain't got nothing compared to how I'm living now and where I've come from and what I get to do for, continue what I get to do for America's sons and daughters, which is continue to serve.
I'll tell you what, I am so, and I don't think it's cliche. It's only cliche, I think, if you don't mean it, but I'm so humbled to be part of this group, and I'm so honored to be here with you all, and more humbled after listening to Tonya. You know, I was fortunate enough to serve 20 years and do 11 combat deployments, and with some of the best units in the world, and some of the best people in the world. I came into the Army because I felt like I needed to pay the nation back for some opportunities that it had given to me. We can call it privilege, but I think we're privileged to be Americans, and I think that sometimes we have to be recognizant of that, and we have to do something to appreciate that privilege. And I'm not saying you have to join the military. I'm just saying that you have to. It's not just about recognizing the privilege. It's about actually executing and giving back. So that's why I joined. But I'll tell you why I stayed is because of people like Tonya and Dan and Tom. You know, Tom, who I got to serve with shoulder to shoulder. And that's why I stayed and kept doing it. And that service, you know, we try hard, very hard, I think, to tell veterans not to live in the past. And I think that is important. We can't live in the past, but we can't neglect the fact that formative part of our lives kind of are foundational to who we are as people. And I look at that and I get to see that in my current positions, that those that have served just have, there's a difference, and they're not better and they're not worse. They're just different. And I think that difference, we talk about diversity, right? That's part of the diversity. We seem to forget, and we think that diversity is only about gender and only about, race, but we get the diversity of thought because we have the diversity of experience. Now, whether that diversity of experience comes from, diversity of gender, diversity of race, etc., that diversity is essential to ensure that our country moves forward together. So I don't want to forget, my service. It's foundational to who I am. And I'm fortunate enough now that, I was able to spend so many deployments in combat, which, 99% of the population, maybe a little bit more than that, will not ever get to experience. So I took those experiences, and now what I get to do, a couple of things, but I get to bring those experiences to the rest of the nation, the rest of the world, and the philosophy that goes along with that, and the things that I've learned. And I think we have a responsibility to continue to do that. So right now, I'm a partner in a company that's about to expand exponentially this fall, where we work with professional sports teams and corporations, and we help with culture and leadership and development. And then I also get to work, and I was just in Tonya's old neck of the woods. Tonya, I was just with the 82nd Airborne Division, talking to the 82nd Airborne Division commander.
All right,
about helping stop sexual assault and suicide with VR. And the 82nd has made a very large investment in preventing this. And I'm proud to be part of that with them, and hoping that, something that started in the Air Force that the Navy is now investing in. Now the Army is about to invest in it, and we get the Marines invested in it, and the rest of, and to include our law enforcement and first responders. I'm proud to be part of that, and continue to serve and continue to give back and continue to share a perspective that the four of us were very, very lucky to experience. And, and that privilege in itself, everybody always thanks us for our service, right? And I'm like, man, what that's privilege. That's I got to do something hey, it was an honor, but you don't have to thank me. So that's kind of what I'm doing now.
Hey, can I just breaking in right quick?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
It's just a conversation. Hook it up.
Yeah, because JC mentioned about the diversity, and not because we think diversity, we think, we look at race and color and that kind of thing, right? But he of course, the smart man that he is, that because I had wrote something down earlier, talking about, the diversity, and this goes to the diversity that, I was so proud to serve because it's such a part of me, and that I get to continue to serve. And I still feel like I'm part of the elite. So I consider not just, the 82nd or a Ranger or this, or being the top less than 1%, making command sergeant major. But to serve in the military is part of being an elite group, because everybody doesn't qualify to do what we've done. It's to serve our country, right? You know, everybody doesn't qualify to be a ranger. Everybody doesn't qualify to be a paratrooper or a master paratrooper. So we are diverse because we are part of the elite that we get to defend our country, protect our loved ones, protect mankind. And I mean, that's just all love, right? So all that goes into the diversity piece for me, what JC was talking about. I mean, it's just amazing.
Absolutely. If you think about it, right, we're so focused on DE&I in the community, in the American community for sure, and yet we're forgetting that, you know, and Malcolm X talked about this, right? It's not about necessarily what separates you, but let's start talking about the things that bring us together.
Yep.
And that's something that when I am fortunate enough to give DE&I presentations, I like to talk about that, right? I mean, let's talk about what brings us together. For this group right here, it's a love of taking care of others, right? It's a love of service, whether that's in the military or what we do now. And I think that's really important, right? That's what binds us together, because, and especially like, look at the three of us. You know, you could say that, well, Tom and I look alike. Tom and I have very different backgrounds, and we have very different experiences, and we grew up differently, right? And we're each bringing, and quite honestly, we attack things from different ways. Right. And, you know, sometimes people would be shocked to find this out, but Tonya and I may be more aligned, or Tonya and I may be more aligned than Tom and I. But we don't focus on what separates us. We focus on what brings us together.
Yep.
And I think that's something that's unique to us as military folks, is we spend a lifetime taking a diverse set of people and making them do something together, and something that we seem to be missing in our society today.
What you find when you're in services, you find community. Right? Like, it does not matter, you know, you go through basic training and everyone's like, the only color you are is green, right? You know, and you just get it hammered in your head. And then you sort of choose your tribe by choosing to be in the military. And then when you leave, you know, you sort of have to like find your new tribe. And so for both of you, especially now that you're both very active and still helping and still serving the veteran community and still serving the military community, I was like, do you think that veterans have an easier or a more difficult time sort of creating that community after transition? You know, sort of, you know, why and why not? How do you sort of see that, especially now that you're continuing to give back and you sort of have a little space from your own transition?
Yeah, so of course, right, you mentioned it. In the military, we have our tribe because, you know, that's easily identifiable, whether it's with your branch, your unit, or your platoon, right? Even from the first day of training, you with members that you're working on a common goal to come together. And that continues to build over the years. You build these amazing relationships, you know, whether you're at duty, your duty station, whether you deploy, socializing together and things like that. And you pretty much know what your purpose is, and you know your identity, and you become stronger together, you become faster together, and hopefully better leaders together. But I think when we transition from the military, I think sometimes it depends. So it may be easier for some people, but it may be a roller coaster for others. And I think that depends on maybe the number of years you served, your position that you served, how well you prepared to transition from the military. So I think it's some different, it depends on how that goes about. But I'm a firm believer, because from personal experience, I dealt with severe depression for years. I still see my mental health providers. I dealt with the anxiety and the PTSD and some other things and injuries and things like that. And I isolated myself because I thought my veteran status and me being, I'm a command sergeant major and I can do it and I'm tough in this. And I found myself isolating myself or you know, not doing the things that I love to do, which is fitness and running my mouth. But and I think when we do that, we forget that we need to continue to build relationships, and now we just have to build new relationships. And I think we have to be honest with ourselves and give ourselves permission to understand and to live through these new challenges are new, just a brand new world out there for us. And especially for veterans that may be needing, a little bit more mental health help or resources to find their way through and find their tribe. You really have to get out and search for different resources. The Veterans Administration, Wounded Warrior Project, just so Mission Continues, Rubicon. I mean, there's so many different things. And I think if we put our feet and hands in a little bit of some things, we can find our purpose and really try to figure out what our purpose is and what we want to do, so that we can live a purpose-driven life like we did in the military, and we can also live it, as we have transitioned.
Okay. Well, she's going to take us a little bit off course here because Tonya just talked about purpose, and it's something that, I've been.
The floor is yours, sir.
Yeah, I've been writing a little bit about. But first, I want to answer your question, Tom. I think, as Tonya said, right, we get into the military and we're given our tribe, right? Mm-hmm. You're assigned to your tribe, and it's automatic, and it's just you're part of the team. And one of the things that, when I first came into the regiment, there was a lot of hazing that went on, and I didn't understand it. And then we went to war, and that hazing stopped because we realized, the person's coming in today. Yeah, you have to trust them, and they have to trust you to go on target like right away. So but we got our tribes right away, and then you come out, and we're not used to necessarily recognizing that you got to find your tribe here. Sometimes it's the people you work with. For example, I found that it's not what you do for a living as a civilian, it's who you do it with that matters. Mm-hmm. That said, that doesn't mean everybody who you work with is going to be part of your tribe. You have to pick and choose, and you got to be a little selective, and you're going to find your people. And it's certainly not going to be all veterans, and it shouldn't be all veterans, but it should be people that you think, meet your requirements. For me, I want to find people that challenge me, make me better, think differently than I do. I got no problem. If you want to stay with people that you think, hey, these people are like me, cool. No judgment, but the idea is go find your tribe and try to expand it, because it's not given to you, and it's really hard to do, especially in transition. And I always talk about, my 3 transitions. One was, not deploying anymore, which was probably my hardest transition, is going from deploying all the time to not deploying at all, which was miserable for me. And then my next transition was taking off the uniform. And then the final transition was finding my people. Right? Who are my people? And some of them are people like Tonya, Dan, and Tom. And I think you've had on Steve Forty and those guys. But some of them have never, I think of people like, Kevin Cornish, who's, the CEO of Moth and Flame. He's part of my tribe now. And he and I aren't alike, but we hopefully make each other better. So I think that's important. But this idea of purpose is something that I've been really thinking a lot about. And I got to be honest with you, we talk about it too much. We talk about this idea of finding your purpose. And I think it's almost become the SAT of adulthood. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. When you're a junior in high school, first semester, senior in high school, you're constantly worried about the SAT. What's my SAT score so you can get to a good college or whatever. So there's all this pressure that we put on these young people, which is nonsense, right? And then we've added this new pressure all over social media, has probably made it a worse pressure, which is, well, what's your purpose? You got to find your purpose. Your purpose. What's your grand purpose? What's your overarching purpose? Stop it. Here's what you got to do. It's not about your overarching purpose. It's about finding purpose in every single second, in every single moment. And that purpose is going to transition. To say that you have one purpose in life is way too limiting and also way too intimidating. What's my one purpose? And I think that's one of the limiting factors in the limited mindset that veterans have, is we get out and we think that that's what we did. That was our purpose, right? Leading was my purpose. Going to combat was my purpose. Whatever was my purpose. But eventually everything stops. So this idea of what I challenge people to do is find purpose in every single moment. You know, your purpose could be, I'm going to hold the door open for these people. Like right now, my purpose is to talk to you and the audience that listens, right? After we're done here, my purpose is to give 100% of my attention to my beautiful wife. My purpose is not overarching. My purpose is in every little second. And that makes it manageable, right? That makes it achievable. That makes it allowable. And when we do that and we take this pressure off ourselves to look, I have everyone from newly graduated college people to senior leaders who are like, what's my purpose? Holy crap, stop it. Purpose in every single moment. And that's enough, because that's what makes a great society. That's what makes a great human, is finding that purpose in every single moment. There is no such thing as an overarching purpose in my mind.
And I'm really interested in what you think about this. I think that one of the greatest strengths we have as veterans is our ability to adapt and overcome in a split second. And that adaptability and that creativity, like, you just can't fear the unknown. You just got to sort of roll with it. Like, how do you sort of see the sort of like the veteran community, maybe even the world at large? Like, let's get a little bigger. And that concept of purpose versus, you know, that like trying to avoid the unknown or trying to avoid the pain of having to like go through that stress and anxiety of confronting something.
Fear of the unknown. So I'm a big fear guy, right? I believe that fear controls a lot of decision making. It's a constant. It's in our lives every single day. It's everywhere. What happens from moment to moment is unknown. You know, my grandmother used to say, you know how to make God laugh? Tell him your plans, right? So this idea that, you know, of course we should plan for the future and we want to plan for the future, right? You can't, you know, you can't just assume that you're going to die tomorrow. That said, what you can guarantee is that your plan may not work out. Like you know, what you think may happen. So I think being adaptive is essential. And that's why I really like this idea. And again, I've only been playing with this idea for about a week now. Purpose in every single moment. Now, I'm not worried about what it looks like in the future or what my grand scheme is. If I get there, wonderful. If I don't get there and I get a different way, well, then that's what was supposed to be. So I think that this idea of fear of the unknown, which is kind of what my first book is about. I mean, why be afraid of something that absolutely, like, you're going to face every day? So don't worry about the future. Worry about right now.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I always say there's no tomorrow. It's always today. Like, you never get to tomorrow. Like, it's still today. Yeah, you know, when I first started, when I retired, you know, I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I was confused and just kind of all over the place. I thought I started a podcast. I didn't do this podcast. I didn't know what I wanted to talk about. I want to do fitness. I didn't. Did I want to teach? Do I want to open a fit? Just kind of all over. But I found purpose in all of that now, looking back, and even with this conversation, because it kept leading me to what I'm doing now. Do I still have purpose for other things? Of course.
You know, sort of the absolute antithesis of purpose is something, you know, is when you decide that you don't want to do anything. And unfortunately, September is Suicide Awareness and Suicide Prevention Month. You know, as people who've been senior leaders, as people who are constantly out there, you know, JC with you at Moth and Flame, and Tonya with you at the Wounded Warrior Project, like, how is it that you sort of, you know, approach that conversation, and how you sort of, you know, build people back up, especially when they're, you know, towards those lower areas of life, which is something that all of us have experienced. Our friends killing themselves. All of us have had to live and have to work through some of those things. And in both of you are in a position to sort of help elevate that. And especially with this being this month, like, so how do you sort of approach that?
You know, with suicide prevention, for me specifically, and more importantly, I think suicide prevention is such a large bucket, right? It's a huge bucket. It's resources, it's numbers, it's counselors, it's all this stuff. I want to talk about suicide intervention. How do we prepare people to have what we consider difficult conversations, but truly all they are is untrained conversations? How do we train people to have those conversations? And how do we and suicide intervention is a small thing, and we think it's limited to clinicians, but we all have a role in that. And I think that it's seeing ourselves as with the ability to say to whoever we're talking to in a really bad place, are you thinking about hurting yourself? Mm-hmm. And I think we think that's a hard question. I probably in the last 2 months have said that 5 or 6 times to different people. And the worst the worst thing they say is yes. But the worst thing, if I was embarrassed, the worst they'd be like is, no, not even close. But nobody's ever given me grief. Everybody has always been like, hey, thanks for asking that. And I think that that's what we've got to do is you're in this moment. Let's see it as the moment. And then from the intervention side, you're in this moment. What their reaction is almost secondary, as long as what you can do is ask that question and get the answer to it, because that's going to make a difference.
I mean, really not even a lot to add with that. I think, we say, suicide awareness and, military sexual trauma awareness, but that word awareness, I think we're all aware of what the hell is going on. We need to take some action, like JC, right? We need to take some action. So another acronym, Army for 30 years, A, action, take action. I, let's make an impact. D, let's make a difference. So what kind of aid are we going to provide when we open that door? It's our due obligation and responsibility to give aid, right? So what type of action are we going to take? People say, oh, I don't have a seat at the table. Oh, your ass is at the table. Now what you going to do while you're there? We have to do something about it. And hopefully I'm doing my part. JC's doing his part. You're doing your part. Dan, and with this program and everything you've done, you guys have done with the book and just continuing to speak out on it and be honest and truthful, because I've had my bouts of suicidal thoughts and that. And, I credit that to the Army and my training and my development of the mental fortitude to, instead of seeking the horror that could have happened, I sought help. So, I just think we really have to, continue to take action. And I don't know, what that even looks like right now. However I say we, I mean, in people, we come up with the plan. Helen Keller said, alone we can do so little. Together we can do so much. I'm telling you, man, we got to come together. This country's got to come together so we can be stronger, so we can be better, so we can continue to serve and to continue to, just take care of one another, because it's just not feeling good right now in that aspect. Get help, get healthy, because, you deserve it, and help someone if you can. And then I would also say, if someone, when they listen to this, right now, pull out your phone and text somebody that you care about and help them find their tribe.
I love that. So I'll tell you, from my perspective, there's two pieces. One, I hope that everybody who's focused on diversity in the world watches this video and watches this interaction, because I think that this absolutely encompasses, what Tonya said at the end there about coming together. Amazing. And my call to action is be a human of thoughtful action, right? We think that there's this idea of rah, 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 attack the day, kill it, whatever. And then there's this idea of, let's think about things and how everybody's feelings are. And you know what we got to do is come to this middle part where it's being a human of thoughtful action.
Thank you so much, JC and Tonya. What an incredible conversation. I think we all learned something more about ourselves and about each other today, and I'm certain that the audience and listeners have as well. For anybody who has checked out the exhibition, The 20-Year War, Our Next Greatest Generation, it is still featured in the National Veterans Memorial Museum until October 2nd. You can still walk through the exhibit through October 14th. After that date, they'll be taking it down. But if you cannot see it in person, definitely go check out nationalvmm.org. That's nationalvictormike.org. Click on the exhibitions tab where you'll see a virtual exhibition of the 20-Year War, Our Next Greatest Generation. You'll see more content for JC and Tonya with links to our podcast through United Valor. Podcast is Never Left Behind, where we go a lot more in depth with JC and Tonya. You can click around through the rest of the virtual exhibition and explore all the other veterans' stories that are featured there. Please definitely check it out. Learn from our veterans. Learn for yourselves. And I want to thank the audience again for joining us. JC, Tonya, Tom, thank you for the discussion. This has been Beyond the Exhibition, GWOT Veterans Leading the Way, Discussion 2. Again, thank you all.